Earlier today, the Hamas terror organization identified the next four hostages that they will be releasing. That is scheduled to take place tomorrow. It's all part of the hostage and ceasefire deal with Israel. And while Israel certainly is going to and is rejoicing in the release of these four women, it is also well aware that the agreement that they made for the release comes at a heavy, heavy cost. And among those costs is the opportunity that it gives Hamas to rebuild after the beating that it's taken from Israel over the last 15 months. So how big of a threat does that pose for Israel in the near and as well in the distant future? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is geopolitical commentator Erick Stakelbeck, who has spent nearly 2 decades covering the Middle East and national security issues in depth. He's the host of the Israel and Middle East focused newscast called The Watchman, and he's the author of 3 best-selling books, including ISIS Exposed. Erick, welcome back to Washington Watch. An honor to have you with us.
Jody, great to be with you. Thank you.
All right, so first of all, let me just kind of a 30,000-foot view from your perspective on this 3-phase hostage and ceasefire deal. What's your take on it?
You know, Jody, I sat down with the former U.S. ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, just a few hours ago, and he said, you know, is it possible to hate this deal, but still support's a strong word, but still say, you know, it's a no-win situation of sorts with Israel, because he wasn't clear how else Israel would get the hostages back without some sort of deal. That said, Jody, look, Israel's getting 33 people back, which is great. We celebrate their release. They've been literally through hell on earth over the past 15 months. But what a heavy price to pay. I mean, Israel, at the end of the day, at the end of these 3 phases, will give up at least 1,900 terrorists. So it's just such a difficult situation. But I think Israel feels that it's going to be difficult to get any of the hostages out without kind of biting the bullet, so to speak, and releasing some of these Hamas terrorists. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu feels more confident doing this, knowing that Donald Trump is back in office, because Trump has been very clear with Israel that, look, if Hamas tries to reconstitute, tries to take power in a major way in Gaza once again, you have free reign, Israel. Do what you need to do. So I think Bibi is saying, okay, we're taking a major risk here, but Trump has our back. Also, Hamas has largely been smashed in Gaza over the past 15 months, still a danger, but nowhere near where they were. And Israel also has excellent intelligence in Gaza now. So as soon as these terrorists are released, they will be tracked and monitored. And Israel also has a buffer zone between Gaza and southern Israel. So it's a lot different landscape than it was on October 7th, for sure. But still, this deal, it's far from perfect, no doubt.
Yeah, those are all excellent points, Erick, that you bring out. And great for us to ponder that and look at it from that perspective. So with Trump, I think that's a powerful point for Israel. But what is the next step for Israel? I mean, they're releasing tons of terrorists. At the same time, they're giving a significant time frame for Hamas and other terrorist organizations to rebuild. So what's the next step for Israel from your perspective?
Yeah, Jody, I don't think that most Israelis expect all 3 phases of this 3-phased deal with Hamas to go through. You would think, judging by their track record, that Hamas eventually will break this deal somehow and violate the deal. Then Israel is fully prepared to go back into Gaza. And they're not gone from Gaza altogether, but to kind of use the full brunt, the full might of the Israel Defense Forces to crush Hamas once and for all. I would say Hamas right now, in some ways, kind of a ragtag guerrilla fighting force now. They can still cause damage, but their rocket arsenal has been completely deplenished. They themselves have no possibility of carrying out an October 7th style attack with thousands of jihadis invading southern Israel. Those days are gone. Hamas, as we know it, is gone. And again, the IDF has had great success in smashing Hamas. Now, Hamas has had some new recruits in recent weeks and months, yes. But Jody, remember, these are a lot of young guys with no experience who they're replacing. And Israel has killed close to 20,000 Hamas terrorists since October 7th. These new recruits, the men they're replacing, were hardened, seasoned, battle-tested, battle-trained Hamas operatives. So it's a big step down in quality, the quality of Hamas fighter as well. But I think next steps for Israel in the immediate future and anytime soon, really, Israel will have to maintain some sort of presence in Gaza. That's a no-brainer. They can't go anywhere. And President Trump, interestingly enough, earlier this week, talked about the potential in Gaza, beautiful waterfront properties there right on the Mediterranean. Who knows down the line? But in the meantime, as long as Hamas has any sort of leadership or exercises any sort of leadership in Gaza, you're not going to see that happen.
Wow. Well, and I think too, we've only got about 30 seconds, but scale of 1 to 10, how committed do you see the Trump administration backing Israel?
Oh, I would say a 10 for sure. I mean, based on President Trump's first term and based on the team he has around him right now, people like Mike Huckabee as incoming ambassador, Michael Waltz, national security advisor, Marco Rubio, secretary of state. So I would say as of now, until I see otherwise, a 10. I know there have been some concerns about Steve Witkoff, who's negotiating these deals. So we'll see there. But based on the first term and the team he has, I'd say a 10 right now. And I hope it stays that way. I hope it stays that way.
Erick Stakelbeck, host and executive producer of the Watchman on TBN. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for this great insight, and I agree with you all the way. Thanks for joining us on Washington Watch.